Welcome back into Sports Memo's betting podcast. College football, every game on the board. This is the last segment for the week with Robbie Veno. Rob, welcome in. How you doing?
I am doing great tonight, Drew. How about yourself?
Doing good, man. Excited to get your opinion. We got some good games on the board, some that I'm involved in. So interested to get your opinion on these. Starting off here, 367, 368. We're going to be going down to the end of the card here with the late night special, Fresno at Hawaii. If you're following along at home, this is rotation number 367, 368, UAB at Tennessee. We got the Tennessee Volunteers laying 12 or 12.5 at Neyland Stadium, 48.5 the total here, Robbie.
Yeah, I've been waiting for a long time to be able to play against UAB because of the schedule that they've faced, Drew. According to my power ratings, UAB's faced the worst schedule in all of college football right now. Their average opponent power rating, for my numbers, is 20.4. Just to give you an indication of what type of teams sit inside that 20.4 power rating: South Alabama, New Mexico State, Bowling Green. Those are the kind of teams that surround that number. So UAB's played nobody. Tough to play them against the nobodies that they've gone against in Conference USA, so I haven't really had an opportunity. Thought this might be an opportunity, but I'm a little bit nervous with Tennessee. Now, they had a great game last week. They get a 24-0 second half against South Carolina. Season highs in total yards, in passing yards, in yards per play. Brandon Moore didn't even play in that game. Justin Garantano came in and played pretty good, got knocked out. He actually split some time with JT Shrout. So you got a quarterback situation here, Drew, where I think Moore is going to be good enough to play this week. So maybe Tennessee offensively will be right. And maybe last week they built some confidence up with that big second half against South Carolina. They're just too hard to count on as a favorite of this magnitude. I made the number -10, sort of in the vicinity, but it's a little out of my price range right now. I can't find the right opportunity to go against UAB. One of these weeks I'll find it, but right now I think they're very overrated. I think their numbers are built on an extremely bad schedule. Like I say, the worst in the country according to my numbers. And I think that somewhere here they're going to pay the price for that. Might be this week, might not. I'm just not willing to take the chance.
I'm with you, Robbie. I think Tennessee's the side here. It's just going back with my numbers. Where I've done not very good is kind of the Conference USA versus SEC profile, just because the discrepancy in talent in terms of the athletes. And, this is not a big number here with Tennessee only having to cover 12. I think it's very doable for the Vols, but it's what's making me stay away is kind of past performance in these type of profile games. But we got staying in the SEC, actually going from Knoxville to Auburn. We got an SEC West rivalry here. Mississippi at Auburn. We got the War Eagle laying 19.5 and Jordan Hare 52.5 the total here, Robbie.
Yeah, Ole Miss had the bye week after the A&M game, and in that A&M game, from somewhat of a bitter better on that night, because I had the game over the total after watching Mississippi play Missouri and use the two quarterback system to perfection, and then come back against Texas A&M and really use the two quarterback system to predictability, where they could do nothing against Texas A&M because every time they had John Rice Plumlee in the game, they ran the football, and every time they brought Matt Corral in, they threw the football, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out on the A&M sidelines. Mississippi gets beat at home. I wonder, I tried to read and see if I could uncover anything that would indicate that maybe this team has made some adjustments. Rich Rodriguez is a spread coach, been a spread coach forever, and a run-heavy spread coach. His teams are always run-oriented. But it seems to me that Matt Corral can run enough to where he can mix it up, and John Rice Plumlee can pass enough to where they can mix it up. We'll see what they come up with here. I just couldn't find anything to prove that the play calling would be different in this game. And Auburn right now, 7-1 against the spread, 3-0 against the spread as double-digit favorites. Bo Nix has only played poorly in games where he was overwhelmed by better defenses. Ole Miss is becoming a little bit better than average defense right now, but they're still not on the level of the teams that have made Nix look silly. I'd love to be on Mississippi. It seems like a lot of points to me. However, like I say, Auburn's been real good as the double-digit favorite. They've racked up over 50 points twice this year in big covers. The front seven for Auburn is going to be scary for either quarterback here. I don't know that Ole Miss has seen that type of pressure yet. They certainly didn't see it against Alabama when Alabama was using a host of freshmen in their front seven. So probably have to stay away here as well. Drew couldn't find a way to look at the total. Boy, I don't know. Mississippi still seems to, be the way I'd lean in this game if I had to play.
Hottie Toddy versus War Eagles should be a good one there on Saturday. And Robbie, let's do some cocktailing in the SEC East. We got Georgia versus Florida. Looks like Georgia laying 6 or 6.5 as we're talking right now. 45 the total in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
And it's a huge game for SEC East supremacy. Probably the winner punches their ticket into the SEC title game, which is what it's all about. In that conference or in any conference with a title game, and especially in this conference where you have a chance to be part of the 4-team playoff. So for Georgia, it's huge. Both teams had the bye week. I think, when you just look at the number on its face value, Drew, and the way it took off from 3.5 all the way to 6 with all the Georgia money and all the Georgia support, left me scratching my head a little bit, because when you analyze this game from a fundamental perspective and a season history perspective, you come up with Florida on all ends. Florida's been the better offense. Florida's been every bit as good on defense. Florida's played a little bit better of a schedule. Florida went to LSU and hung up 28 points, and they're tied 28-28 in Baton Rouge in the fourth quarter before finally the tempo got to them. Georgia won't tempo Florida, so the defense should be fine. Florida returns 3 huge players from injury this week. Kadarius Toney, their game-breaking wide receiver, back, just another weapon for Kyle Trask, who's been very, very good. And then you get 2 starting defenders back, defensive end, Zuniga, linebacker, Jonathan Greenland, who happens to lead the team in tackles for loss and who's been called by his teammates and his coaching staff the best defensive player on the team. So, to me, I don't know why the mad rush towards Georgia, except for the fact that it's a desperate situation for the Bulldogs. They're immensely talented. Let's not get that wrong. But in a game like this, where it could come down to a 1-score contest, do I want Dan Mullen's creative play calling, or do I want Georgia and what seems to be a very, stagnant offense at this point in time? Jake Fromm's the better quarterback, but in South Carolina, he single-handedly blew the game with 4 turnovers inside South Carolina's 30. Sure, Georgia could win this by 7 points. Of course they could. But for me, the 6.5 points right here seems a little too much. I made the game on a neutral field 2.5. So I don't know where the 6 comes from. I'd probably play Florida plus the points.
And Robbie, is this the SEC East Championship? Or no, there's a way that another team can win it?
Realistically, without seeing the standings in front of me, there might be a way somebody else could win it, but Mizzou's got a couple of losses now. Kentucky, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. I don't think there is a way, Drew. I think whoever wins this is gonna, unless they, get upset the rest of the way out, they're gonna be favored, whichever team wins this, in the remainder of their at least SEC games where it would come to a tiebreaker. So I think this is probably, and I'm sure that's the way Georgia and Florida look at this game. This is our chance at the SEC title game.
Yeah, for sure. We got 3-7-3, 3-7-4 up next, 12:30 Pacific kick. TCU at Oklahoma State. Looks like we got the Cowboys laying 2, 2.5, or 3. So some opinion in the marketplace here. This has had some movement off of the opening number of 4. So some TCU tickets being written, 58.5 being the total here, Robbie.
I think that's the number that's short here, Drew, is the total, 58.5. And I'll break down TCU season for you just to show you why I think that way. There's a huge dichotomy between results from TCU. 7 games played, 4 games against Arkansas Pine Bluff, Purdue without Elijah Sindelar. That was Jack Plummer's first start way back when. They played Kansas when Les Koenig was the OC and not Brent Dearman. And they played Kansas State. Against those 4 teams, defensively, TCU only allowed 211 total yards, average 14.5 points a game. Those are great numbers. 2.7 per rush, 45% pass completion. Those games went 3-1 under the total. Excuse me. Now, high-powered offenses that they faced in the other 3 games, SMU, Iowa State, Texas, 429 yards allowed. That's an increase of 228 yards per game. 39 points allowed. That's an increase of 24.5 points. 3.7 yards per rush, 60.4% pass completion. Everything you can see goes up significantly when they play good offenses. And the kicker to the whole thing, against those 3 teams, the average total landed at 72. They scored 79 points in the SMU game, 73 in the Iowa State game, 64 in the Texas game. To me, 58.5 seems low against an offense that's more than capable. Excuse me. I think over 58.5 has to be a play here, Drew. It's come down, but I don't know why. It doesn't seem to be any weather. I'll be on over in all likelihood.
All right, that's TCU versus Oklahoma State in the house that T. Boone Pickens built. That's in the Pac-12 there with Oklahoma State laying 2-3. I like the Cowboys there in that one. We got UTEP versus North Texas up next, and Robbie Veno here, winning 7 straight weeks, having profitable weeks in college football, and you can get his next month. That's all of November. His college football. We'll also throw in his NFL. We got college basketball starting as well. So every sport, every play he releases for 30-day all access. If you use the coupon code VENO199, that will give it to you for under $200. That's VENO 199 at checkout. That's Veno 199 at checkout. Sportsmemo.com for his 30-day all access for just $199. Every sport, every play he releases all month long. We got UTEP versus North Texas. The Mean Green laying 23.5 in Denton, Robbie. 60.5 the total here.
Yeah, excuse me, Drew. Certainly disappointed. Last week, they blow a 35-21 fourth quarter lead. You don't know where their mindset is because now they're a 23-point favorite against a team that they should crush. They need 3 wins to make a bowl game. So it's an important game to have, but I don't know if they can cover the 23-point number. I think they might just go through the motions here. The UTEP side of the coin here, interesting because we don't keep large tabs on UTEP. But I will say this, Drew. Offensively, last week, Kai Locksley started at quarterback. I'm losing it here. Started at quarterback after they had run a 2-quarterback system for 5 weeks. Locksley led the team to their highest offensive output of the year against FBS opponents. If it weren't for turnovers, that game against Louisiana Tech would have been a little bit closer. They lost the ball at the Louisiana Tech 33 and at the Louisiana Tech 9. Head coach Dana Dimmel, quarterback Kai Locksley, both believed that they couldn't be stopped by Louisiana Tech, that the only thing stopping them was themselves. And they think if they can clean up these turnovers, that they can have a strong finish offensively to the season. That being said, makes 23 look even bigger here against a North Texas team that might be unenthused. I can't recommend it with any conviction, but I can say that UTEP plus 23, the way that they're playing right now, best offensively this year, and the way that they feel about themselves right now, which is as confident as they've been all year, I think that maybe UTEP plus the points might be worth a look.
Robbie, next game up, we got Tulsa versus Tulane, and the Green Wave here laying 10 or 10.5 at home in the Big Easy. And I'll tell you, when you go after Willie Fritz's team, it's a team I have circled as a bet on. Absolutely, Robbie. And going up against, I believe, the Military Academy last week against Navy, they got down early. They didn't quit, which I was worried about, having a bet on them. And they came back to actually stay within the 3 in the hook number there and covered against Navy. Didn't exactly look good. Wasn't one of their better games they played. But overall, a tough team. Now, however, having said all that, going up against Tulsa here, Tulsa is a team that I view as the ball is kind of not bounced their way. In seeing them catch 10 here against a Tulane team that hasn't been dominant, I'm not looking to jump at the bit here to lay double digits here with Tulane. But at the same time, this isn't a Tulane team I look to bet against. So, Robbie, any interest here quickly on Tulsa versus Tulane?
I'll tell you what, if you just go to their ATS records, Drew, Tulsa is 4-0 against the spread on the road. Tulane's 4-0 against the spread at home. Tough to bet against either side, really. The Tulsa road covers are pretty impressive. Michigan State, it took the points to cover. They lose the game 28-7 straight up, but they covered 23.5. San Jose State, they beat outright by 18. San Jose State's become a pretty good Mountain West team. SMU, they took the triple overtime on the road, played SMU closer than anybody's played them all season long. And Cincinnati, another kingpin of the AAC, they get 15.5. They only lose 24-13. So their 4 road covers, to me, are pretty impressive. Tulane, of course, 4-0 against the spread at home, doing everything they're supposed to do at home, covering numbers. Both teams, it's so crazy, Drew, because it's a mirror image game. You talked about the tough loss Tulane comes off of. Navy kicks a 48-yarder on the last play of the game. Tulsa misses a 29-yarder on the last play of the game to beat Memphis. Only lose by 1 point to Memphis, another AAC kingpin. So a lot going for Tulsa, a lot going for Tulane. I don't know which way these teams will react off of those games last week, both heartbreaking last play of the game losses. Last week for Tulsa, they punted. They punted their first 3 possessions. After that, they scored on 7 of their next 10. The only reason they didn't score on all 10 drives last week in a row against Memphis was because they missed 3 field goals, 29, 40, and 40. So tough game for me to play. 2 teams that you would love to play on in their particular situations, but too much mirror image stuff going on for me there. If I had to, in a game like that, the general philosophy is to take the points. We'll see how it goes.
All right, Robbie, heading to the SEC West up next. We got Mississippi State at Arkansas, 58.5 the total, -7 the hook. That's the Bulldogs laying on the highway.
Yeah, kind of a garbage game, Drew. Both of these teams have had disappointing seasons. Both of these teams have quarterback problems. For Arkansas, Ben Hicks doesn't play last week because of a shoulder injury. So Nick Starkel has to step in, and Nick Starkel was horrible once again. His last 2 starts for Arkansas, he's been pulled from both because he's been so bad. 12 of 38, 99 yards, no touchdowns, 3 picks. Last week, they had to bring in true freshman John Stephen Jones. Why is he important outside of football? Because he's Jerry's grandson. Trying to keep up the Arkansas tradition here, I guess. Yeah. He played the second half, goes 6 of 7, 49 yards and a TD. Big deal. They've got trouble at the quarterback position. I don't know if Hicks can go this week. He's still listed as questionable. And even if he does go, they haven't been good with Ben Hicks. They've been outgained 456 to 251. That's minus 205 total yards. In their 3 games since the bye week, you would have thought that Chad Morris and company could have straightened something out at the bye. But instead, it's gotten worse. Downhill slide for Arkansas. Now, to their credit, 2 of those 3 games are Alabama and Auburn. Not easy for Arkansas. But the third was Kentucky with Lynn Bowden Jr. running that Wildcat offense. So, I don't know. You can't like Arkansas here. It's just as difficult to like Mississippi State. I'll do one of these combined ATSs for you here. Mississippi State, last 4 games combined. If you blindly bet against them, faded them for the game and for the first half, you're 8-0. They're 0-8 against the spread, full game, first half, their last 4 games. They're not coming close right now. Overvalued, obviously. Last week, their defense gave up 73% third down conversions. Both of these head coaches, Chad Morris and Joe Moorhead, have their fan bases talking about who are we going to get in here next. They're both fighting for their jobs. One guy's doing it with true freshman Garrett Schrader at quarterback. The other guy's doing it with whoever at quarterback. The only separation I can find between these 2 teams that Mississippi State has an outside shot at a bowl. They have 3 wins, and to get 3 more is possible. They could win here, they could beat Abilene Christian, and they would have to win the Egg Bowl at home against arch rival Ole Miss. But I don't know how you could want either part of either one of those teams or any part of either one of those teams.
All right, Robbie, good stuff, man. And I'll tell you what, I'll quick hit these next four games just because it's right in my wheelhouse in terms of handicap, and then throw it up over to you to summarize if you need to get a drink or anything, man. Got Middle Tennessee at Charlotte up first here. MTSU -3 on the road, 65 being the total. I look at this one from a couple different ways, and I really like this MTSU side. I think this is an underrated team. We got Rick Stockstill in his 14th year in Murfreesboro. 3-1, by the way, in each of the last two seasons in the month of November. I think there's something to that with head coaches, especially in the group of five conferences, keeping their kids healthy, keeping their kids interested down the stretch. Also, Asher O'Hare taking over for Brent Stockstill, the coach's son. A lot of question marks coming in there just because Brent Stockstill was one of the top group of five quarterbacks really of my lifetime. And O'Hare's done great. There's even a joke in the MTSU circles, the Asher O'Hare show, just because he's a dual threat kid, kind of exciting to watch. Also, the fact MTSU, their schedule, Michigan, Duke, Iowa, out of conference, and in conference, Marshall, FAU, and FIU. I mean, those are some of the big boys in conference, plus out of conference. They've had a rough schedule. So they've been really up against it schedule-wise. Charlotte, on the other hand, they're coming off of their biggest win of the Will Healy era, their new head coach, arguably the biggest win in program history, beating North Texas 39-38 just last week. But other than that, I mean, they've lost 4 of 5 straight up and against the spread. I think they're up against it talent-wise. I think MTSU is the side here, and this number is short at -3. We got FAU at Western Kentucky up next. Western Kentucky down to -1, -1.5 favorites. I've been on FAU almost every game this season. It might be every game this season. And this is one where I haven't bet them as of now just because the Western Kentucky defensive front gets after the opposing quarterback. And that is where FAU kind of struggles against teams that push them around up front. So matchup-wise, I think actually Western Kentucky's the side. It's just I don't know if I want to step in front of FAU as well, just because in my opinion, they are the most talented Conference USA team. So not sure if I'll step in front of them. And then heading to the Sun Belt, we got Arkansas State versus Louisiana Monroe. And Arkansas State, a -2 favorite on the road, 67.5 the total, high total here for a reason. Should be a lot of scoring. I think the wrong team's favored here, Robbie. I think ULM is the better team, especially because Arkansas State is banged up. This is not the same Red Wolves team of years past. And ULM, what they've been able to do under Matt Viator, he made the jump up from the FCS level to Louisiana Monroe and has done a great job. Overall, well-coached team, good quarterback. Defense, not so great, but I think they can score here with Arkansas State. I bet ULM and put the 2 in my pocket. Also, last game, and then I'll throw it over to you, Rob, for any summary here on these 4 games. Miami, Florida State, the Sunshine Bowl, whatever you want to call it. Heated rivalry here. -3, Florida State at home in Tallahassee, 49 being the total. And I don't know, man, with what's going on there with Miami, they are a volatile handicap. I tried to bet against them against Pitt, and I lost. I feel burned with this team. I don't want to get in bed with them, that's for sure. But at the same time, can you bet on Florida State with what's going on there in the program? I mean, is Willie Taggart even going to make it out of year 2? That's a huge question mark. I will give him this. I think Hornibrook playing the quarterback position, he's a more stable quarterback. Therefore, if you made me bet it, Robbie, I doubt I bet this game, but I would be involved with the home team here, Florida State -3, just against a Miami team that it's getting better. I like the trajectory of the program. Just from week to week, you never really know what you're going to get with Miami. So I'd go with the home team, Florida State. Doubt I get there, though, Robbie. Anything in conclusion here on these 4 games?
Yeah, real fast on Miami, Florida State. I would probably recommend Florida State if I had to as well. I just think the Miami offensive line has been a weak spot all season long, and Florida State's been much better defensively, statistically, the last 4 games. Starting to come around a little bit now, and I agree with you on Hornibrook, maybe a little bit steadier quarterback. I want to go back to Middle Tennessee real quick here, Drew, and just point out the fact that they basically changed their whole offense last week. It was interesting to see that Asher O'Hara threw 12 passes and ran the ball 22 times. They wound up running the ball 95% of their yardage last week, and they got a lot of yards. 496. 95% of it came on the run. The play calling percentage was 81% run, 19% pass. So they might have found something with this running game. And again, Charlotte, if you can run the ball, you can do real well. Charlotte gives up about 200 a game on the ground. You talked about how they came through last week with that huge win touchdown pass with about 34 seconds left to upset North Texas. They haven't been good on the road. Love Reynolds, love Benny LeMay. They're great for points, but I don't know that they stick with Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is a better defensive team. I was worried when they lost Blankenship a couple of weeks ago. MTSU, their leading tackler, probably their leading defender, the heartbeat of that defense. But they played pretty well in the second half last week. They wind up 36-0 second half is what they put up last week. So I'm just interested in the fact that Coach Stockstill decided to change the entire premise of his offense, maybe for only one game, but I don't think so. I don't think he'd do that just for one game against Florida International. We'll see if they run the ball a ton here. FAU, Western Kentucky, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Western Kentucky's defensive front has been killer all season long. You can't run on them. They only allowed 2.9 a carry and 97.5 rushing yards a game. And, last week, Drew, we had the Florida Atlantic Old Dominion game on the card, and I was on FAU because my idea is if FAU can bully you at the line of scrimmage and run the football, it sets everything up. It helps Robeson. It sets everything up. And they did it. I don't think they'll do it here. Robeson went out last week with a shoulder injury at halftime, but he's scheduled to play here. I think they kept him out precautionary second half because they had a pretty good lead. But it'll be interesting to see if the shoulder bugs him here.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If Robertson's out for FAU, he's obviously a big part of that offense. And keep in mind, he was a 4-star recruit, signed with Oklahoma out of high school. So he's a talented guy there in Conference USA. Robbie, we got 4 games left here, and then that will do it for the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast. And guys, remember the coupon code Robbie Veno, his 30-day all-access coupon code Veno. 199 at checkout. We'll give it to you for under $200. Huge savings there at sportsmemo.com. 7 straight profitable weekends for Robbie Veno in college football, and it will also include all the other sports he does as well. Let's talk New Mexico at Nevada real quick, Robbie. We got the Wolfpack laying 3 in the hook, 58.5 the total. This is a Wolfpack team some people think has quit on the season, but at the same time, can you bet on New Mexico?
Somebody is, Drew, because it's like there's a bunch of people running into a forest fire with their money betting New Mexico here. Lines come down. Interesting development last week prior to the game against, I think Nevada played Wyoming. And they had just inserted the week before Malik Henry from Last Chance U fame as their starting quarterback. And the offense looked really good. And they put up over 40 points and won a football game. During the practice week last week comes a bulletin that says Malik Henry has been removed indefinitely from active participation with the football team, basically suspended. Therefore, Carson Strong had to start last week. He steps back into the starter's role. They get drilled by Wyoming. But I still think they're better off at home with Carson Strong than having the New Mexico side, which defensively is an absolute disaster. Offensively, they've got a couple of playmakers, but they turn it over and make mistakes as often as they make big plays. So for me, I don't see why there's a big rush to New Mexico. Maybe it's because Henry's not involved anymore. He seemed to be working their offense the best, but I'd take Carson Strong at this short price at home with Nevada.
Heading to the Pac-12, Rob, we've got Utah and Washington. The Utes laying 3, 47.5 the total here, Robbie.
Yeah, for Washington, it just hasn't come up roses for a while now. Ever since they beat USC, I think it's been all downhill, right? They get slaughtered by Stanford. They lose that heartbreaker to Oregon. It's a chance for them, Drew, to make to have a big win this season inside the conference at home here against Utah. And I wouldn't put it past them. Jacob Eason, a very talented quarterback, the Georgia transfer. Chris Peterson, sitting here as a home underdog. That's tough to bet against as well. That being said, Utah is clearly the better team result-wise this year. That defense is absolutely tremendous, and the offense has done enough to score points to help out. Last week, they get a crippled California team down to their third-team quarterback. They could do nothing against them. True freshman QB. got a good future, but certainly wasn't the place to play at Utah in his first start. 35-0 the win. I think Washington's kind of live here, to tell you the truth. I think they're diverse enough offensively to slow the Utah pass rush down and maybe get a couple of plays defensively at home in Seattle. So I might look toward Washington in that game.
Robbie, we have a Mountain West matchup here, which in most weeks would be the degenerate special, but we got Hawaii playing at home, 11:59 Eastern kick. So either way, a lot of people going to be betting both games. Boise State at San Jose State. Looks like the Broncos laying 17 on the highway, 59.5 being the total, Robbie.
I'm just a fan of San Jose State because they've consistently made me money this year, whether it be side or total. But Josh Love, the quarterback, has been outstanding, and the way they push the ball down the field vertically, Drew, they put pressure on teams' secondaries, and I think they'll put pressure on Boise State here. Boise State better get to him and hit him because San Jose State doesn't stop throwing the football. So I think it's a ton of points to give them at home. Boise's the better team, obviously, but I don't think that San Jose State is getting enough credit here. I think they'll stay within the 17.
Robbie, last game up, heading to the island here. Fresno State at Hawaii. And guys, before we get it, just last reminder here on the coupon code VENO199 at checkout for Robbie Veno's 30-day all-access package for just $199. 7 straight profitable weeks in college football. That coupon code is VENO199 at checkout. Fresno State at Hawaii, Robbie, 69.5 being the total. The Rainbow Warriors laying 2 or 2.5 in Honolulu.
Yeah, I think I could play it over, Drew, because I haven't seen anybody yet of the same talent level or even above talent level. I mean, Hawaii might lose the game, but their offense doesn't get shut down, a la the Washington game in Seattle, or there's another I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. But Cole McDonald and that crew of receivers, JoJo Ward, Cedric Byrd and company, they constantly move the football. And Fresno State's defense is having an extreme down year. So Hawaii will likely light them up for points. And on the flip side, Hawaii really doesn't stop anybody anymore. The start of the season, they were halfway decent. At this point of the season, they're far below average. Fresno State will get theirs. Hawaii will get theirs. This Hawaii team is making these types of numbers where totals are concerned look very small. Last week, I had the over in their game, and it seemed as if it was a done deal against New Mexico. It wasn't going to happen. But luckily for me, Nick Rolovich pulled his starters out early, and New Mexico came alive and scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter because Hawaii can't stop anybody. So for me, in these late night Hawaii games, and any Hawaii game for that matter right now, as long as the number is within striking range, I'm going to play it over. I think 69.5 is within striking range.
Great stuff. As always, Robbie, find him on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Coupon code VENO199 at checkout for his 30-day all-access package. Guys, you can reach out to me on Twitter as well at Drew Martin Bets. Let us know what you think of the podcast. What else you want to hear on the podcast? Always interested in it. We got the it's on sportsmemo.com, the Apple iTunes podcast app as well, and on YouTube. We simulcast it video-wise on the YouTube channel. So check us out. Please like and subscribe. Robbie, anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
Yeah, thank you for giving me enough time to regain my composure there during this show, Drew. A lot to say. Sometimes I say it too fast and get myself a little dry-throated. But no, absolutely, as always, we want the listeners to win games, and we're hoping we bring you good information. So if we are, drop us a little hint of that in the comments section.
Absolutely. Well said, Robbie. And we'll have Robbie back on next week on the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast. Rob, thanks for the time. Best of luck with your bets. Best of luck with your bets out there, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. NFL Every Game on the Board podcast coming up.